Hello and welcome to Conversations with the Voice of Reason. I'm your host, Benjamin Boyce, and today's conversant is Andrew Isker, the author of Christian Nationalism, a biblical guide for taking dominion and discipling nations, and The Boniface Option, a strategy for Christian counteroffensive in a post-Christian nation. In this conversation, we talk about his work trying to start a faith-based community in Tennessee and the pushback that he gets from the local media there. We also talk about Christianity and how that might or might not scale into a national movement in post-liberal or late liberal America. He's a great guy. You can find him on YouTube and Twitter, links to which are down there in the description, as well as links to support this channel. Without further ado, here is Andrew Isker. What was the effect of your Tucker discussion for you?
Oh, I mean, I don't know. I think I got a lot of a lot of really good feedback. I mean, I think a lot of people really liked it, and I mean, I was inundated with like emails and text messages and things like that, and DMs and all of that I still haven't, had the time to go back and answer them all. I try to do that with people, but it was yeah, it was a little bit overwhelming actually at first. It was like,
Mm-hmm.
whoa, this is crazy. But I mean, the other weird thing was like, going out and like people that you don't know who you are, is a strange phenomenon. It's not something I'm used to.
Yeah.
People knowing who I am, and so yeah, like that's wild. Yeah,
Do
I'm
you
not
do you like
not
that
made for that.
asymmetry or don't care for it?
No, no, because um, people will form, all sorts of opinions. I mean, sometimes most often good opinions of you, but it's like they don't really know you, and I've gone the first 30 plus years of my life where, right, anybody who knows me, I know them, and I know why they know me, and I have a pretty good idea of what their opinion is of me. Um, and you're completely in the dark with people. All right, so you're at such a disadvantage with other people. So it's one of those things where it's like I think about like actual famous people, because I'm not famous, but like actual famous people, what their lives must be like, right? I have a tiny little bit of a window in that where, yeah, you have this asymmetry where everybody knows who you are, you don't know them, and you kind of always have to be like on your guard all the time in a way, the way you didn't otherwise, right? Everyone's just anonymous, right, in real life. And so that's a strange dynamic. It's hard to, you can't like prepare for it, but uh, yeah. But I mean, it is kind of fun. It's fun talking to people. I like people, so it doesn't really bug me that much. I think some people like are don't want to be known and end up being famous and then just become like bitter and resentful and angry. I don't think I don't think I could do that, but it's a strange feeling though. Like when you show up somewhere and people like, and usually they don't talk to you. Usually it's like a double take, like, what? Oh, that's the guy. Yeah, or like I was like I was out to eat with some friends, and we walked over to the bar to get a drink, and I could see like people like point, like kind of quiet, like sitting there like pointing. You see that guy? Like that's weird. That's just weird to me. Like, and I'm not famous. I'm just a normal person. But yeah, that was strange. And sort of discomforting. and But yeah, I overall though, I mean, it was a wonderful experience. I think it's certainly it certainly helped to explain, in your own words, the kind of things that we're doing, especially after we've had, media hit pieces done on us, right? That's another asymmetry that is not so good.
What's the content of the critique or the hit
Oh,
piece?
like there was the local news channel in Nashville has done 2 stories on us. The first one was one of me and CJ, who I do the podcast with, and trying to frame us as like white supremacists and neo-Nazis and all, like the standard slurs, right? And the funny thing with that is like, right, they could take like little like tweets and things like that out of totally stripped of context and they can make you seem to be whatever they say you are, right? And so there's a huge freak out over that, and it's like, no, I actually am pretty much just a standard paleo conservative, right? But the people are not able to, like, the average person doesn't know what that is, right? They like, you, even if you tell them like, oh, it's just basically like Pat Buchanan, right? They don't know. Most people don't know who he is either.
Mm-hmm.
And so to try to distinguish like what your actual views are based on the slander of what you are is really difficult. Because I mean, we like to think that social media has broken down the old media and has given us a tremendous advantage, which is true, but they still have a tremendous amount of power to shape how regular people en masse think about things, and so yeah, like that happening it's pretty difficult to deal with that, right? To be lied about, and the truth. Everybody who knows you knows the truth, and the average person, if they know of you after something like that, like thinks like you're some kind of monster, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it that becomes difficult, but like the ability then to like tell our side of the story, what we're actually doing, like we're here, friends of ours are developing real estate, building neighborhoods, basically building real estate developments, and we're trying to get our friends to kind of move to live in the same area, where it's like, you think of your favorite group chats and stuff and think like, man, it'd be really cool if we like could just do this in real life, right?
How isolated do you guys project you'd be, or how insular, I guess?
Certainly not as much as like the the media would make it out to be like, they're building a compound out in the woods. It's like, no, it's a pretty normal development just in a rural area, where it's a neighborhood with houses, right?
Okay.
And for families and for people to either bring their remote jobs or bring businesses and set up shop, and so it wouldn't be, it's not something like the company itself is one that like anyone else abides by the Fair Housing Act, right? So it's like, well, they offer land to anybody, so it's not like, oh yeah, we're no libs allowed or anything like that, but the overall thing is like, if me and all my friends are there, right, like will end up attracting like, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not like formally in like a legal sense or anything like that. It's not insular at all, right? It's totally wide open. But in terms of the actual people that are coming, well, it's people that more or less are like us, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they could probably kind of think like, would I want to be neighbors with CJ Engel or Andrew Isker? Yeah, they seem like cool guys. I like their family. You know, they've got families and kids. I'd like my kids to be hang out with their kids, like people like that, right? So it's not like this walled off, you know, compound where everybody's hidden away
Yeah.
and we're awaiting doomsday or something. It's like no, we just want a decent place to live, right? Like that. Literally, that's all it is.
Yeah. So on the scale of Waco to an HOA, you're more on the HOA side of things.
Yeah, way more. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's not even a comparison. You know, it's basically like yeah, an HOA with like conservative guys,
Hmm.
right? Like we're all gonna fly American flags, like you know, like something like that. You know,
Hmm.
but you know the fact that the guys involved in it are also involved in you know especially like online right wing stuff, then it's easy for the media to caricature it as some kind of compound and this hidden away community or people will say oh he's starting a cult and it's like no I just I'm pastoring a reformed evangelical church that anybody can be part of if they want to. Right? It's like,
Hmm.
no, you don't have to buy land to be in my church. Like people have thrown that out there, like, oh, you have to buy land to be in the church, and it's very exclusive. And it's like, no, it's not. Anybody can join it, right? It's it's just it's strange, right? But I mean, but that's part of the thing, though, is like every single day, people are building real estate developments all over the country, and if you fill them with random people, right, they all just get filled with like whoever buys it decides, okay, it's a good price, it's close to where I work, whatever. Right? Nobody bats an eye at that at all. But if you build one and the people buying it are saying, hey, we want all our friends to kind of live in the same place and we can kind of you know do life together, have like real community, have have common ties that bind, then it's like, oh my goodness, this is the end of the world. This is the worst thing ever. How dare you do that? Which is it's fascinating to me because like throughout the history of the country, as towns were built, right? I mean, I think of like my hometown. It was settled by German and Irish immigrants, right? It was just an empty spot on the prairie, and then they all came they set up their churches and all moved to the same area and they had all you know the same things in common, and that's how most of the towns throughout the country were developed, right? Where they came from is like the same people that had all of the same both cultural and historic you know heritage things all together, right? Boom, they make a town, and that's how like America was settled. But if you do things like that today, it's like, no, that's awful. That's terrible. How dare
Well,
you?
if it's left coded, if it's a commune, free love kind
Oh
of
yeah, that's
nudist
allowed.
colony kind of thing,
Yeah,
that's totally fine because you're not really producing anything that's a threat.
yeah.
You're just
If we were setting up a polycule, like the news out of Nashville would come here and do like a puff piece on us,
yeah.
right? Like oh, they're going to you know backwoods hillbilly country and setting up a polycule. Like look at how transgressive and how much they're fighting for diversity and all of this, right? That's
Yeah.
what they would do. And actually, literally, that in my hometown in the county, a bunch of libs, you know, lib freaks. Like I think this was a month or two before I left. They set up like a polyamorous chicken farm, and
Hmm.
the Star Tribune did like a front page story, or it was the front page of like the Metro or culture section, right, about this, and it looked like any other time you've seen, right, like one very obese Venus of Willendorf, and then a couple you know gay guys, And it was like, isn't this so wonderful? They're going to this, to MAGA country and doing this wonderfully diverse thing and all of that. And it's like, yeah, that kind of thing that is lauded, it's celebrated. But if you're like patriotic American conservatives and you want to do something like that, cannot do it. That's dangerous. And I mean, really, what it tells you is like you said, it is a threat to to the entire project of post-war liberalism, where the implicit object of all of it is you want people to be totally atomized, right? Just mere individuals in a mass collection of mere individuals. You do not want them to have any group solidarity of any kind unless it is group solidarity in service of leftist goals, right? That's the only thing allowed. Any right coded group solidarity is explicitly evil and bad, right? That's why it's a threat, right? That's why there's a huge freak out over it. That's why they call you Nazis and racists and bigots and everything else, because they don't want people doing that, right? They don't want any type of group cohesiveness in like physical, geographic proximity together. That cannot be allowed because it challenges everything that they hold as an ideal, right? That's why.
What is the content of that ideal from your point of view? Is that related to the idea that you've been developing around trash world?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Yeah, it is. It is. And so it is. I mean, yeah, I mean, trash world is like my shorthand for the social order of the post-war consensus, right? That every single person should be completely alone and atomized. It should be cut off from he or she should be cut off from history, from historic ways of life, from any respect or love for one's own heritage, whether that be cultural, whether it be ethnic, whether it be political or religious, right? You want that completely cut off. You want to be abandon the old world, where it basically puts everyone in the position of a year zero, right? Where everything prior is forgotten and gone. And the flip side, of course, is that you also are cut off from the future. There's no posterity. You don't want people forming families, having children, building anything in their lives to pass on to posterity. You don't want that either. So you want human beings to be cut off, temporally in the past and in the future, and also in the present from other people, right? Again, unless, right, the caveat always is unless any of those things serve the purpose of deconstructing and destroying Western, political and cultural establishments. Right.
Why do you think that gained traction in what you call the post-war period? And is it not? It kind of sounds like the logical next step to the American identity of frontiersmanship, of individualism, of progress, of forward-looking, of flinging yourself into the new world. Which,
there's
a
an
lot of
aspect
that stuff's pretty good.
Yeah, there's an aspect to that where I think some of it is like, because you look at like historically America, right? You're leaving an old place, coming to a new place, and you're throwing yourself entirely into the unknown of the future, the unknown of unexplored territory, all of those things. But even there, those things are still somewhat mediated by the past, right? When all the various settlers that came to places, I mean, you even see this on certainly on the in the West. There's so many towns named after other towns from the East Coast, right? Everywhere, right? And I think part of it is I would distinguish it from today, right? Where the past is just the past is evil and must be destroyed, versus right. We're going to take the good things of what we had and build upon them in a new place and look to the future. Whereas today, it's everything in our past is evil and bad. It must be repudiated and denounced, and and also the flip side of that is like there is no future, right? At least not for us, right? The future is for the dispossessed and the outsider, right? If there is any future that's pointed to, whatsoever. And so it's again this like year zero kind of revolutionary attitude. And so yeah, the question of like why in the post-war world in particular did this sort of thing take off? I mean, some of it, I mean, you can get into some of the theory selling and discussion about like Herbert Marcuse and the Frankfurt School and things like that, and the effect that that they had on
Responding to fascism and trying to rebrand communism.
Yeah, exactly. And so there's some things there and their contributions to the New Left. That's part of it. I think part of it is also just a natural effect of the world historic level of material prosperity that America had, right? When you've got a lot of money as an individual, right? If either of us became a billionaire, right, and you're even like somewhat interesting, you're gonna do a bunch of weird stuff, right? Because you can afford to do a bunch of weird stuff, right? When you got all the money in the world, you can do whatever you want. And I think the same thing happens collectively to a people when they have just this inordinate amount of wealth collectively. Is you can afford to do a lot of weird stuff that when you're poor you can't do, right? You're just trying to survive. And when you've taken an entire civilization from beyond, right, just subsistence level, right, we're just trying to scratch out a living and live to the next day, to we got all this cash and stuff and food and everything else, and nothing bad is ever going to happen to us. So you can start tinkering with the social order, right? You can like poorer civilization, they just can't afford to do that, right? I mean, you think about like Europe in the 14th century or something, right? Like why did they never develop any theories about transgenderism, right? Like why was that not a thing then? And maybe some people would say, well, part of it is the cultural foundations of Christianity and so forth, and how much that permeated culture and so on and so forth. That's true. But I think some of it too is like when you're as poor as dirt and everybody's as poor as dirt, like you can't afford to do stupid things like pretend a man is a woman, right? Mm-hmm. And like believe in these like mass psychosis things. But when you got a lot of wealth, you could do that. So I think part of it is that I think part of it is you have massive changes socially that come from industrialization, and but then where for all of human history, right? If you wanted to do like heavy labor, like you needed men to do that, right? You wanted to farm, like you need a man, a human male, to like plow with oxen or whatever, like any kind of, or chop down trees, right? Like women couldn't do those things. They lacked the physical ability to.
I don't know. The
And
Marvel movies kind of depict women that are strong enough to accomplish.
yeah, there's a whole bunch of Black Widows out there, right? Chopping down trees and plowing fields. But yeah, like it is really silly. But with industrialization, right? Well, a woman could drive a tractor, right? A woman could drive a truck. I mean, we can get into the controversy about disparate ability to use machinery and so forth between men and women, and various studies on those things. But overall, like they're physically capable of doing that, and women could work in a factory. Women could do like basically it levels out the physical differences between men and women in terms of labor, and so the resulting the resulting sociological change is that, well, in terms of labor, if men and women are more or less the same, at least perceived to be that way, well then, socially, politically, and every other way, right, they're the same as well. And then you get into like post-industrial economy, where it's mostly information, right? Well, yeah, obviously, right, women can send emails or type memos, decades ago, and do all of those things. And so you have like hand in hand the technological changes that take place in the late 19th into the 20th century till today, that level the gap in labor between men and women, even though, right, like social order, right, still requires distinctions between men and women, right? Like women, usually from the ages of 20 to 30, right? That's the only time new human beings can be made is between in that little time frame. And that's, I mean, everybody talks about like natalism and birth rates and birth rate declines and things like that. And it's like, I mean, the elephant in the room there is, right, well, we send young women to college and the workforce, and they don't become mothers, right? That's why. And so the social order that is really fixed into the created order, that and like every civilization just understood, right? Because you couldn't not, like, you would die off quickly if you live the way we do today. That is slowly decayed because it's not obvious to us in the way it would be 800 years ago that men and women are different. And so when you make them equal, it not only like not in terms of like worth and things like that, but in terms of economic equality, political equality, all of those things. And you break down that social order, right? Well, the result is a lot of chaos and a lot of confusion that isn't like readily apparent, right? It isn't readily obvious to us because it's like, well, yeah, men and women are the same, man. Like, why are you such a sexist, right? Why are you a misogynist? Why you hate women? And it's like, well, only women could be moms, right? Only women could be moms. Like, that's a pretty important thing. And so when you have that breakdown of the natural family and motherhood and everything else, right? You have all manner of social disorder that arises from that. So all of the, like, feminism, gay rights, trans rights, all of that stuff, I think ultimately has its source in the breakdown of marriage, of family, of distinctions between men and women. And it reaches its zenith, I think, in the middle of the 20th century in the West.
What, with Ally McBeal, or what was the 80s?
No, I think, yeah, I think it reaches its zenith just because of the material, the lack of material constraint upon it. That's just natural. That's what would happen if you're running a big giant global corporation, and you are the scions of capital in a nation, and you have an entire half of the able-bodied adults right there able to do the same work, right? Well, you're going to take advantage of that, right? You're going to incentivize that. You're going to push women into the workforce, and like capitalist smoking your cigar, wearing a monocle in 1955, like you're not going to care what happens to the birth rates in 50 years, right? You're not going to you care about the bottom line right then and there. And so I think that's the natural progression of things. And as that ball continues to roll, you have the various philosophical developments in that movement, and you reach a point where we're at today, where marriage is seen to be almost this antiquated thing, where
unless it's a polycule.
That's right. then it's great.
Even gay marriage is passe at this point. Mm-hmm. Regressing.
It is. I mean, even that. I mean, it was obvious at the time, and certainly very obvious in hindsight that was kind of just the camel's nose under the tent to normalize homosexuality in the society, where it's just and it's an accepted thing rather than a thing that historically has always been on the fringes, out in the gutter. Now it's placed front and center, and it's a thing that's celebrated. Like that was the point of it. It wasn't like, man, they just really, if I know anything about gay people, it's that they really love monogamy and they just want to settle down with one. Like, no, like even like there were so many like gay activists that were opposed to the gay marriage movement, based on that very reason. Like, we don't want to be shackled in monogamy. Why would we do that? That's like antithetical to our entire lifestyle. But the faction of the gay movement that was pushing marriage, they knew exactly what they were doing, right? It was a cynical ploy, and it worked. I mean, you went from the overwhelming majority of the country viewing homosexuality as with disapproval, to overnight, within a matter of months, overwhelmingly approving of it, right? Like that is a significant. I mean, that's the thing. Like I always point to when I talk to people about like elite theory and like how culture is made and formed and shaped. It's like, no, like culture is imposed, right? Someone is always doing the cultural imposition on someone else, right? It isn't just like spring out of the sky and fall and descend upon us. Like culture is shaped by somebody, and often by the end of a barrel of a gun. And
is that the inevitable culmination of your work? That
culture is shaped, is imposed.
Well, no, that if your cultural precepts are good, and those cultural precepts are evil, and you accept the premise that culture is imposed, then isn't it kind of your duty or the logical conclusion that your culture must be imposed, centered, promulgated, propagandized even?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, to a certain extent. Yeah, I think so. I mean, more or less. And it isn't, and that's the difficult thing, is where it's not, people want to think that it's like, guys dressed in black carrying guns, dragging people away, that are doing the cultural imposition. It's much less overt than that, right? Cultural imposition.
Well, at this point in time, and since before the World War, propaganda itself is a part of the technological revolution, part of the industrial revolution, psychology and business coming together and really studying how people are shaped. We can't get away from that, and so, and we're too smart to fall, at least Americans are too smart to fall for direct. Well, actually, no, that's not true, because Antifa in the 2020s reckoning really proved that the prevailing force in America is totally willing to let violence occur as long as it's in its direction.
Well, it's like the famous, Tucker clip where it's like violence works. Right? That's the only conclusion you can reach from this. Violence works. And so
Well, it didn't
yeah, I
work on
think
him. I mean,
no, it didn't work on me either. But for the majority of people, it does.
yeah.
Right? For the majority of people, it does. Right? People tend to be scared, especially people that. Right? I mean, a lot of it is people do what they perceive the majority of everyone else is doing. Right? And so, right, if you perceive that, and this is where propaganda plays a major role. Right? Whether it's reality or not does not matter. Right? If the perception is right, anyone who thinks there's anything whatsoever wrong with a man sodomizing another man is an evil, horrible, awful bigot and should not be allowed in polite society. Right? If you perceive that, right, even if you're like, oh, I'm a Christian and I have these strong Christian beliefs and so on and so forth, and I was raised this way and believe the Bible, right, that will have an effect on people, right, where they think they're completely swimming against the current, where everybody else thinks this and I think something different, right? It takes a different kind of person to be able to to swim upstream like that, or even to perceive that they're swimming upstream, right? And that's where propaganda is incredibly powerful.
Well, I think it goes even further than just targeting the belief. If just focusing on homosexuality, it targets the disgust response, which is bred into people and is now being rapidly bred out of people via pornography, via media, via propaganda. And the interesting thing about the disgust response being leached or not passed on to people around sexuality is that now we're watching a generation not flourish, but have no morality at all, or to even think that sexuality has any more moral content to it is a foreign idea to
totally
them.
foreign. Yeah.
It's a foreign idea.
Yeah. And like the thought of that too, of an entire generation that views it as an amoral thing, right? It's
a biological operation.
Yeah. Like, I mean, even looking at it from like, I don't tend to do this being a like young Earth creationist. I get into that with people all the time, but it's like, I mean, even from like an evolutionary biology, right, evolutionary psychology standpoint, which I think still does have some merit, right? Obviously, it would be bad from like a biological standpoint if everybody viewed procreation and the sexual act as having no moral component whatsoever, right? That will destroy civilization. It will, and that has to be. I mean, that's one of the questions that I get from people is they're like, well, you talk about, in your book, you talk about trash world, things like that, and you use the word they, right? You say they want this, and it sounds very conspiratorial. Like, who is they? And it's like, well, the point is that they is very nebulous, right? I can't, like a lot of people want to be like, oh, are you talking about like the World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab and things like that? And it's like, no, not really. I don't think there's any particular person or even group that is like pulling all the strings all the time. It's more, I mean, almost like Moldbug talks about like decentralized conspiracy theories, where there is that those are the most powerful because there isn't one like trigger man. There isn't one guy pulling the strings, telling everybody what to think. It's like this group that has a consensus and they all believe it implicitly and they all understand what they're up to and what they're doing. And if any one node on the group defects, well, they could just be cast aside and they don't matter. Right. And the group keeps chugging along like that. That's when I use like they, that's more what I talk about is it's not like this centralized thing where there's some identifiable organization or group that's like we're the destroy civilization group. We're in charge of everything. And there are some identifiable groups that maybe get lumped in here and there, but like it's not it's not something. It's murky, right? It's hard to know. But at the end of the day, like, you know that there are people that want these things, right? There are people that want things to be the way that they are, for various different motivations, right? Some of it is just, basic. This is good for me financially if we do X, Y, and Z, and that's all the motivation they need. Some it's like the arch conspiracy theorists, like the guy that everybody wants to be the trigger man of everything, like George Soros. Like that guy, for example, right, clearly just hates civilization, right? He names the open society, like, of course, right? He wants to destroy civilization, right? That's what he likes. He likes chaos. He likes destruction. There are people like that too. And part of it is like people get captured by ideology, right? They believe in ideology that everything Western is ipso facto evil, and they'll concoct whatever justifications they need in order to tear them down and destroy them. And so you take that whole stew all together, like that's the they, right? And so it's not very satisfying to people when I can't just like give them a list of names. Like, these are the people responsible for everything. But that reality often is unsatisfying. Right?
Well, is there a counter they that you're participating in, or a counter ideology? And is it having to do something with the reformed aspect of evangelical Christianity? Is there another they?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, and that too is somewhat nebulous as well. There was the famous tweet, infamous tweet by Stephen Wolfe a few years back, where he was like, white evangelicals are the lone bulwark against moral insanity in the country, and a lot of people got really angry about that because he included a racial term, right? But like, it's an accurate statement, right? Like that particular voting block, that particular electoral cohort is like the only one that stands against all of these things consistently, or mostly consistently. And so the problem, however, is there isn't very much leadership in that world at all. It's basically running on inertia, and the leaders
it as well is infected by individualism.
Yes, it is, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, even like the American religious scene is entirely individualistic, right? I mean, I make this point to people all the time that like it is something that is very unique in the history of Christianity. That right, you look at something like the Reformation, and it wasn't like, all right, we're gonna set up 4,000 denominations in Germany now. It was, all right, you're elector of whatever principality you're in. He has decided to break with the Pope. He doesn't want his bishop pushing him around anymore. And so they're going to be Lutheran now, or they're going to be Calvinist now. Right. And then everybody is. And you might have some hangers on in the air that remain faithful to Roman Catholicism. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't like, all right, bam, Reformation happens, and now we've got 7 different megachurches in town. It's right. You're either one or the other. Right. And that's what would happen. And it would be, and it would often be in Europe along ethnic lines. All right. Even in Britain, it's really interesting that the various iterations of Protestantism in Great Britain, whether it be whether it be Puritans, whether it be Anglican, Roman Catholic, all of that, right? They really were centered around the like sub ethnicities of England. Right. That's it. And it's like, that's a thing you're not supposed to know or think about, but it's like, that's interesting.
Well,
Right.
how does an American...
They were individualistic though. Oh, say it again.
Well, how do we as Americans deal or square with the ethnic component? I think that is where a lot of the tension between the center and the right is being evoked right now around what do we do with that? Do we stand on that? Do we accept it? Do we deny it?
I think I would say.
And how does your faith instruct you on where to put it in the stack?
Yeah, I would say that it's something you accept. It's not something that you ground everything on. Like you just accept it as reality, right? That, I mean, for me, it was weird. Like one of the weirdest things. I mean, maybe it's not so weird actually when you think about it in a historical perspective. But like my great-great-grandfather was a German Reformed minister. First in Germany, then immigrated to the United States in 1871. In that period of time, like the German Reformed Church merged with a bunch of different other churches, and eventually, like my family were part of the Methodist Church.
Yeah.
Right. Even though we had there were no like doctrinal, major shifts from my great grandfather or my grandpa or my dad. It was, well, this is what we've basically always been, right? And even though they're not like these like dyed in the wool Methodists or something, but then I go to college. I'm involved in like campus ministry, and when I'm in campus ministry in the early part of the 2000s, there was this great revival of Calvinism within evangelicalism, and I kind of get swept up into that, and there's a wide spectrum.
Like why was it the belle of the ball? Why was Calvinism sexy for evangelicals?
I think the reason why is because in the 90s you had like the seeker sensitive movement was massive, right? Which
is kind of like the managerialization of outreach. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Managerial Christianity. Absolutely. Yeah. Where we've got metrics.
Get them in the seat.
We get them in the seat. If we follow all and they'd have spreadsheets. They would have like all this stuff. Right.
Yeah.
And I think it was a reaction to that. I think it was where that is obviously, a very man-centered thing where it's like, if we just figure out all the right components, we can have this perfect system that'll work and it'll cater to, and it's very commercialized, very individualized.
Streamlined.
Yeah, we're catering to the market, the religious market. And the reaction to that was, no, like God is the object of everything that we are doing. He's the one that matters the most, not even human beings ultimately. And we're going to, and so I think the desire for a strong, truly omnipotent God came out of a reaction to like just something doesn't feel right about this whole seeker sensitive thing, and I think that's where it came from ultimately, but and within that time, I'm reading things, studying things, like trying to just sponge up as much Christian doctrine as I can and think through all these various things. Because again, there's a wide spectrum of like, what does Calvinist Christianity look like? And I actually read John Calvin, read many of the earlier reformers, and I'm thinking, because most of the Calvinist revival was very Baptistic, and so
what do you mean by Baptistic? Like in tone and vibe?
No,
And
no,
what would that be?
no. I mean, just it was mostly Baptists that were becoming like Reformed Baptists, and so they would adopt like the soteriology of John Calvin, but that's it, for the most part, right? Any of the rest of his doctrine, pertaining to the sacraments, pertaining to baptism, pertaining to a whole host of things, his ecclesiology, so forth, they did not adopt. And I looked at it and I thought, okay, I want to see, why did they think that? I mean, I was fascinated with the question of like, okay, like I read Calvin and it's really good and it really fits with everything that I think. So why did he baptize babies? Right? That doesn't make any sense. And I started pondering this question, like why did they do it? Is this like a leftover thing from Roman Catholicism or what is it? And so I went in search of answers that to that question. Like, why would they do that? Like, they had to have some good rationale. They didn't just do things.
How would that not add up for anybody who's not well versed in Christian theology? Like, so
like why he did? Yeah.
You brought up one of your one of your Christian terms,
soteriology. Yes,
which means about being saved. Like,
yes, right. Yeah.
By what process is the soul brought into correct relationship with God?
Yes, right.
And it's through so Calvin has a formulation. All I can remember is Calvin, there's some inkling of predestination, or it's kind of God's job. God does that.
God calls. Yeah, God calls people to Him and regenerates.
So to baptize a baby would to be putting yourself in the place of imposing God's will on a child. Is that why it doesn't add up?
I think for most people, especially because like, and I apologize to any Baptists that are listening to this, but there's a reason why America is so heavily Baptist, and I think part of it is the individualistic and democratic culture of the United States, right? So the two things dovetail together really well.
And the cornerstone of the Baptist movement is that people are baptized as a part of their intentional acceptance of Christ.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
So it's linked at that point. Okay.
Yeah. Whereas the Reformers would view a child of believers as a recipient of God's grace, right? By virtue of being born to Christians, right? That they view it and view the world covenantally, right? So that there are individuals, but there are no mere individuals, right? They're bound up together and connected. And I read these arguments, right? And they wouldn't like argue that, okay, if you're born to a Christian mom and dad, then axiomatically you will be a Christian, and that the soteriological argument would like skip you, right, or something like that, right? It's like, no, you still are born a sinner. You still are needing God's grace, all of these things. But rather it would ground baptism on the promises of God to His people and to their posterity. That you're baptized, you're brought into the covenant, and that grace is being given to you by God by virtue of the household you're raised in, that you're a part of the family of God. Like these are the arguments that they would make, and maybe it's because I'm odd enough that I can like see the individualism of America, like radical individualism, and sort of react to that and be like, okay, I guess this makes sense. Like this is how people actually used to be everywhere. Not even in Christian societies, but everywhere. People understand that they are part of something beyond themselves, that people preceded them, that they're part of that people and that people will follow them, that they're part of a group of people collectively here and now. That's how people actually used to think. And so it made sense. It's like, okay, I get that now. I get it. It makes sense. And so I started getting into more historical Reformed theology, right? So yeah, men like Calvin, or I started reading the Westminster Standards, Westminster Confession, and the larger and shorter Catechism, and that was kind of the standard of Presbyterianism in America and in Great Britain, and I liked it. I liked it a lot. I thought this makes a great deal of sense. But then I started devoting a lot of study to the Reformed theology on the continent of Europe, and this is probably all really really boring to people. But it's a long story, and I'm getting to the point of it.
No. I think there's a lot that is under the surface of what you're.
Yeah, and I start reading as I'm about to get ordained. The church I was in, they didn't hold to the Westminster Confession. They held to the three forms of unity, which was a continental Reformed doctrinal statements. And I was reading the Heidelberg Confession and the Belgic Confession, and I'm reading that. I'm like, I think I like this way more than the Westminster Standards, which I liked, but I'm like, I think this is much broader. I like Westminster is very narrow, almost Puritan, in its formulations, and this was way broader. It left way more room for various gradations of biblical theology and so forth. And I was like, I think I prefer that. I think this is what I hold to now. And like no sooner than I had read and studied the Heidelberg Catechism that I was like, I went back for whatever reason. Like I went back and picked up some of my my great-great-grandpa's stuff that he had. And it was all in German. But it was, I had a copy of I had his Bible, and he had a copy of the Heidelberg Catechism. And I'm thinking like, this is crazy. This is like, is it just a random coincidence that I went down this long circuitous path, doctrinally, where I was just, when I'm a teenager going to college, I am just kind of this generic American evangelical.
Yeah.
And then I start studying things, and this is where I end up, is exactly where my great-great-grandfather was. Like, this is incredible. I'm like, I don't think it's random. I think, I mean, maybe it's in the blood, I don't know.
Yeah. A genetic or an ethnic component to how you view the world, or what formulations of the world resonate with you. Yeah.
And so I guess to answer your question with that story, your other question is, I think what America is undergoing currently, and probably will for the next 100 or 200 years, is a sort of ethnogenesis where you don't have people, very many people who are like, I'm 100% English, or I'm 100% Dutch, or 100% German, or whatever. I'm 12% Polish, 30% German, 10% Norwegian, whatever. And it's just generically American, right? That the old, and that's been a process has been undergone for a century or more now. And the resulting, ethnic groups, some of them will be, much more regional. Even though America is not, like, the regionalism of America has massively declined. Where I think about the people that I graduated high school with or college with, the majority of them are not in the Midwest even, or the upper Midwest. They're all over the country. And I think that holds true for like everywhere. That, everyone's just kind of randomly sorted throughout the country, that you don't have a particular place, right? Even if you have a place that's home, your parents are there, your grandparents are there, you go visit it, Thanksgiving, Christmas, that sort of thing. But you personally don't really have home. You're just transient everywhere. I think that is a thing that is going to change. Partly because of remote work and things like that. Partly it will be due to larger, geopolitical and macroeconomic forces that that in 50 years, right, will we have to manufacture everything overseas and everything else. I think there will be much more medium scale manufacturing, much more localized. That the processes have become so much more efficient now that it's we can actually do it again. I think that change, and it's largely economic change, will drive a sort of regionalism on into the future. Where, I mean, who knows how things are going to shake out geopolitically over the next 50 years? But
Heck, the next 5 months, we have no idea.
Yeah, exactly. So it's hard to think about trends and where things will go. But it seems, and I could be completely wrong and discredited 5 months from now, but it seems like a globalized world is in its death throes. That and maybe the first nail in the coffin was 2020 and disruptions to global supply chains. But I think now you look at it and you think about it, it's like there is not like maybe some of it is the United States is much weaker than it had been at any point, where you don't have this Pax Americana where the United States Navy keeps global shipping going. I mean, you can even see this with some of JD Vance's. I think it was the leaked signal chats. You talk about like why do we even care about the traffic through the Suez, right? Like almost none of that goes to America at all. Like why isn't Europe dealing with the problem of the Houthis? Not why do we have to, right? And some of it is like we don't have the I mean, just look at that conflict on its own. Like they did for a month. It cost $1 billion and they made no progress at all. Right. I think the limits and some of that's just technology, that like dirt poor Houthis can bomb shipping and with drones. That warfare itself is massively decentralized now, where a small group can disrupt a massive empire. And so I think over time, and I think you see this with like Trump's whole agenda and everything else, isn't just like populist American, like we need to make stuff in America for American. Like it is that, of course, but I think there's also a greater strategic plan there as well, where it's like we're not going to be able to keep this up forever. And so if that is true, then this globalized world will slowly start to dissipate, and economic activity will be much more national and regional. And so if that's the case, I think that you will begin to have a much more static world that and not in the same way that it was, prior to the 20th century, but much closer to it than anything we've seen in 100 years. And so what that will do is, right, if people stay in the same place for generations, right, you begin to have a sort of ethnogenesis and regional subcultures and things like that once again, and their own particularities often govern, right, and in this, like, it's not overt way, a very implicit way, govern their sensibilities on things, even like theology. Like there is a reason why Dutch people were Reformed and Scandinavians were Lutheran and everything else. Like there's a particular character that those peoples have that lends itself to the particular theology that they are attracted to, and so America, and does that mean that America will become less individualistic, like it has been for hundreds of years? I don't know, and I don't know if it means that that this area of the country is going to be Baptist and this area of the country is going to be Presbyterian, and this one, I don't think it'll shake out like that. But there will be there. I mean, because you still kind of see it now, like where I am right now, in Tennessee, where it's very, like, there are churches of Christ everywhere, right? It's very Church of Christ country here, and it's like, well, these were all Scots-Irish people, and that's the particular religious perspective that sort of they adopted, that fit them, and so, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think things will be much more like that. But as far as like the overall question of where does ethnicity and things like that play a role in American Christianity, I don't think it will ever be this like overt thing that's like foundational, where it's like we're a white church. Like nobody's ever going to do that. I think that is a very a non-Western thing. Is like we're going to be the Korean church, or we're going to be the black church, or whatever. Like that. Like Western people don't do that. Americans, like white Americans, do not do that. They don't. They think of themselves in universal terms. And I don't think.
Do you think of yourself in universal terms, despite yourself?
I try not to. I try to be a little bit more introspective. I mean, just because I am who I am, and because most people are just unaware of things. That's just they don't even think about it, right? Why would you? And so, I mean, the fact that I've thought about stuff makes me, not a universalist in those in that way. Or it's like, yeah, I am what I am. Okay. But I don't think the majority of people ever are going to do that. So it's never going to be this foundational thing that people stand on. But I think more and more it is something that people are aware of that they had never been before. That and I think that's actually a good thing, right? To be aware of oneself and who you are, where you came from, all of those things. Like that, to have that awareness of your place in the world, your place, the group that you're in and its place in the world, like that's important, right? It's and the fact that American evangelicals for my entire lifetime and well before it were totally unaware of that made them very easy to manipulate in things like 2020 and to push like racial guilt on them and stuff like that. I mean, I can't even begin to describe how many like black squares of people I was in college with, put up on in 2020 on their social media. It's like, oh yes, we stand with George Floyd. Like
How
they
did
just
that
easily manipulated that way.
that racial reckoning? How did that affect you? Like, were
I
you
mean,
on
I
a
was in
path
Minnesota.
already, or you're in
Yeah,
Minnesota? Oh, geez. Okay.
yeah, I was
Yeah.
in Minnesota when it was happening. I was an hour and a half away from the Twin Cities,
Yeah.
and so yeah, it affected me. I mean, I mean, I was in the moment. Like you don't know, especially the first week or two of it, right? You don't know how crazy it's going to get, right? In hindsight, you look at it and it's like, okay, it was a very destructive riot that eventually, burned itself out. Coincidentally, like, right? Oh, it's in the middle of a presidential election and then just kind of stops when the
Hmm.
election's over.
Yeah.
Oh, weird. But in the moment, you're thinking like, could this turn into like a third world style revolution, right? Where it turns into Rwanda, right? Like you immediately go there and start thinking that, like, right,
Hmm.
okay, what if they just start killing people, right? Like, who's going to stop them? It looks like nobody is going to, and so you there's some fear that you have, right, for yourself and your family's safety and things like that. But yeah, it was it for me, and the most disheartening thing was like seeing people that I thought should know better and realize the game that was being played with them totally get played by it, and only well after do they sort of grudgingly admit, yeah, this was all fake. You know, Derek Chauvin is a political prisoner, like all those kinds of things. Like a lot of
Hmm.
people after the fact are like, okay, this was not what they claimed it to be. And part of it is like you had to see what happened, right? You had to see that, oh, this was just used to manipulate gullible white people into massive collective racial guilt, and now we're doing land acknowledgments everywhere. We're tearing down statues. We're treating ourselves like these horrible, evil people all the time, and people eventually, started to see this game being played on them.
And you were wise to it for some reason.
Yeah,
Were you?
yeah. I only because I just describe myself as odd. I guess I don't know, weird. I I mean, maybe because I had seen what had taken place in 2014 with the first, BLM 1.0. I was like, oh, this is just a total confabulation, right? This is all astroturf. This is all fake. And I could see the same thing, happening. And I mean, part of it is like pretty early on at that point, like I understood the the ultimate goals of the left or wokeness or whatever you want to call it at the time was like everything that I am, straight white Christian man, like that's what they hate, right? They hate all of those things together and they love the opposite of that. And they're all connected, right? I mean, you even see this with the, most recent version of the trans gay flag with the, arrow
Chevron.
pointing in it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's like all those things collectively together are like the opposite of me. Right? That's the point of it, right? That's why the gay stuff and the feminist stuff and the abortion stuff and trans stuff and racial stuff all like rally together, right? It's what Saylor calls the coalition of the fringes, right? Where it's like I mean, this is why like David Hogg didn't stand a chance being in the DNC, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
he's at least three of the four. He's straight and white, or two of the three. And being a male feminist, I guess, is not enough to save him. But like that the object of their animus and hatred is people like me. And I understood that before 2020. And so I see 2020 happening and it's like, oh, well, they hate me. Right. That's what this is about. Right. They hate people like me. They
Well,
don't.
what's the proper response to that collectively or at scale?
I
For
think you're
straight white
starting.
men, Christians.
Yeah, I think you're starting to see it take place, at least somewhat in the discourse. I mean, even just with the reaction this week to Trump bringing 50 Afrikaners, allowing them to be refugees in the United States, the freak out over that from all of the people who are like, refugees welcome, we love refugees, more, give us 10 million of them. 50, straight white Christians from South Africa, no, we can't have them here. They have to go back, right? I mean, even like Democrats are saying, as soon as we take the White House, we're deporting them. Right? It's like we want them to go die. Right?
They're taking the brown people's jobs that we brought in here illegally.
Yeah. It's like, man, so like you see those things like masks are coming off where they can't like it's been this lot like the whole like great replacement. Oh, it's a conspiracy theory. We'd never do that. And then like, oh, the white population is declining in America. Yeah. Like the celebration parallax, right, is very real. And instead of like people like me who think about this stuff and are not in the mainstream thinking about it, now it's like regular people are forced to reckon with it, right? It's so overt, so in your face that it's undeniable. I mean, I think the reaction to the Austin Metcalf killing, and then a few weeks later the woman in Rochester, Minnesota, with the N-word, right? Like that is not something you would ever have seen in the spring of 2020 or summer of 2020 at all. Like the opposite of that. And so so some of it is just like collectively, just like standing up for yourself. Right. And they'll call that, white supremacy or white nationalism or whatever. It's just like, it's kind of like from, it's almost a decade old now, but like the okay, it's okay to be white meme. Right. And how insane that drove everyone. It's like, well, I mean, just think of it on the merits. Like, wait, so you're saying it's not okay? Like I should not exist? Is that what you're saying? That's why it was so, mimetically powerful, is it forces them to admit, yes, we don't think it's okay for you to exist. And so some of it is just simply saying, yes, I like existing and my children existing. And I'm not ashamed of that, right? It's not even like I'm proud to be what. It's like, no, you're not going to make me ashamed of what I am and who I am. Like, I think that's the collective response that's necessitated. And it goes back to your question of whether it's a foundational thing to stand on or it's something to be aware of.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think being at the awareness level where it's like, we exist, we're not ashamed of it, and we will fight anybody who says we should be ashamed of it. Yeah. Right. It's not the grounding of who I am. And I don't wake up every morning and think, oh man, I'm so glad I was born white. We're so great.
Well, at least you do wake up in the morning. That's just a big deal.
That's right. I'm just happy to wake up in the morning. That's right. But I think that's the major change that's taking place.
I don't see I don't know if I want to bring it up or not, but there's now an emergent pattern in the center to call everything right of center woke right.
Yes, of course.
And to fearmonger around emergent fascism as if there's only three options. There's communism and fascism, which are the same thing basically from the liberal point of view. And then there's liberalism, and any sort of recognition of collective white identity in America is one step towards fascism. I don't see Americans becoming fascistic. I don't see Christians becoming white American Christians becoming fascistic. I think that they're installed in a certain sensibility that is ethnically derived through centuries of Christianity, where they are very open people. They're very industrious, hardworking people. And as long as you don't mess with them, you can actually drain a lot of wealth from them to give to the people whose cultures don't provide that amount of industrious capital.
Yeah.
But I don't see... There are outliers, and I think that whatever's happening on Twitter with the anti-Semitic uprising kind of stuff, the stuff that's becoming more and more open or more and more bandied about, the Hitler memes, stuff like that, I don't see that translating into actual political action at scale in America. We're too spread out, and we don't really care. You know.
Well, and so much of that is like astroturfed and like very third world coded.
You think like India or something like that?
No. Like, no, the Indians are very philo-Semitic. But no, I mean, like, so much of it is like, even like the Israeli-Palestinian conflict it's, white people, right? Even if the Israelis wouldn't call themselves, or American Jews would say, no, we're not white, versus brown people, right? That's the crux of the conflict, right? That's all that matters to them. And you see this on the online right, where it's like, yes, we're adopting the free Palestine position on everything. Like that's made its way into the culture, I think. Or they're riding the coattails of like far left people becoming anti-Semitic. I think there's a lot of that. But I think you're right though. The overall, right, American Christians, or just the middle Americans, right, they're not going to adopt those things. They're not going to like really start consuming the political philosophy of mid 20th century Germany. Like, they're not going to start adopting those things. Part of it is like, I read Paul Gottfried's book on fascism, and like once you read that, like then you really understand what that whole thing was in the middle of the 20th century. That it's very time bound. It's reactionary to the particular political considerations of mid 20th century Europe, and the threat of communism, right? And we don't face a threat like that, right? There's not going to be a proletarian revolution in America. Yeah, like it's not along those lines at all.
I think it could. I think that there is a threat, but it's a mimetic threat.
Yes.
And you can see that in 2020, which was just a massive psyop that a lot of people played on themselves. And it was very emergent, and it went in the direction that power wanted it to go until it was no longer expedient for the powers that be. But I think a lot of the so-called anti-Semitism or so-called bigotry on the online right is actually a mimetic counter strategy. And it's not a wet war. It's not like a real thing. It's a way to release pressure and to diffuse a lot of the memes that have been keeping the right in the shackles of the left's accusations of bigotry. And
I think so. I mean, I think some of it is also like young people in sort of their intemperance of youth that they will or if you like, oh, you're going to call me a Nazi and a bigot and an anti-Semite and all these things. Well, I guess I am then, right? They'll just agree and amplify, right, with the accusation, as a strategy to neuter such accusations on the right. But I think some of it is like actually played up, right? I'm sure groups like the ADL and SPLC, like they love that this kind of stuff is going on, right? Because it makes them a lot of money, and
it's really
gives
good
them a
for
lot of
business.
power.
Yeah.
But overall, like the American right, even if it is aware of these things, right? It's not acting on them. It's not acting on them in like like overt political strategy or anything like that. Like even on that issue, right? The overall, like the American right has become it has become much more self-consciously pro-America, right? And so on that issue, it's like, oh yeah, it would be good to like, in the American-Israeli relationship for us to have like some obvious tangible benefit to it, right?
Yeah.
If we're gonna keep going down this road, like that kind of thing, much less of like, oh, we hate Israel because they're Jews or something that is not even among the youth, like even among the Zoomer, right? It isn't like this thing that's taking off. That I don't see that at all. It's much more, right. We just want what's good for our country, right? We want what's good for Americans, right? That idea it has certainly taken hold in the consciousness of the American right, which you weren't allowed to think those things 30 years ago, right? Is this good for our country or not? That's not something that was allowed to even be said. It's like what are you, some kind of isolationist? Are you some kind of
I
some
don't
kind
know
of
why that's a bad
protectionist?
word.
Yeah, I know it's not.
Isolationist.
It's not. Yes, I would like to not be in wars every single day.
Yeah, right.
Well, crazy. But yeah, I think overall it's much more of a positive outlook rather than a negative one. It's much more, we want what is good for us, not what is bad for the people we don't like. And in terms of like overt political action, like that's what's going to carry the day.
Well, what is your biggest concern about the right? Because you're of the right or on the
Yes, I
right.
am. It's
It's your
certainly,
team, right?
yeah, it's my team. I think the bigger concern is the purity spiraling, right? Where it's like, if you don't agree with us on this and this issue in exactly the same way we do, well then you're an enemy. You're bad. Where the left is very, very adept at having their radicals over here and just like not caring about whatever crazy they say. Not it's just they're totally Teflon when it comes to that, where it's like you can't stick any of the crazy people. I mean, just look at the church that Barack Obama attended for like decades and the pastor there, right? They couldn't even make that stick on him. And he's there every Sunday, right? And this guy's like ranting about white people and how evil America is and everything. They can't stick that to him. And so the concern is that the like above ground people, political operators at the top of the hierarchy, the congressmen and senators and people like that, and people coming up through the ranks as well, the staffers, all of that, that even despite the sort of vibe shift that has taken place, that they'll continue to practice the same ritual denunciations of anyone an inch to their right, and then the corresponding reaction of people that are the inch to their right just losing their minds and destroy, going total war on this person that isn't quite adequate in their view. That is probably the bigger concern, is that the right would self-immolate through these like internecine conflicts, and like you see this, and I mean that's a concern, but it's not like I don't see it happening, especially because like the centrist figures have really tried to batten down the hatches in the last year, and certainly since the Trump victory. and like they're throwing out the woke right thing, attacking Daryl Cooper, going on Tucker and Rogan, and attacking Dave Smith or whomever else, calling Tucker woke right, calling Matt Walsh woke right, like the centrist people, they're marginalizing themselves. And
well, I think the response to them not having traction is showing a robustness on the right to
oh yeah,
be immune to that kind of behavior, especially because they were subjected to that so extremely in the last 5 years that you think that
yeah.
that it would work. That's just not going to work anymore. It's
No.
like old
No, it
tactics, man. It just doesn't work. Actually, that's how you like get the exact opposite. If you actually wanted to strengthen the right, that's what you would do. You would call them a bunch of fascists.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what's taking place. And so I think the natural immunity to those things has been overall very good. And I don't think it will descend into those things. I think actually like the people that are up and coming and rising within the GOP are much more keyed into discussions on the right online, and much more aware of that sentiment. And I mean that's the vehicle for bringing these things into widespread public consciousness. Is not like me and my buddies writing Substacks or whatever, shouting into the void, hoping that the sheep will one day wake up. It's like, no, you have figures like Donald Trump and JD Vance that, because this is like even the Afrikaner thing. Like I remember like posting about this, tweeting about like Donald Trump should give refugee status to the farmers in South Africa that are being murdered. And this was like a totally novel thing. Like nobody was talking about it in his first term, right? And now in the second term, it's like happening. It actually is taking place.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, how did that happen? It's like, well, people in his White House and his administration are from our guys, or their guys are listening to our guys and getting ideas. And because this is how the left has operated for 100 years, is they'd have their radicals, they'd have their heterodox thinkers, and those people would influence people that are on the pathway to the levers of power.
Twitter's kind of an open air think tank for the right.
Yes, it is. It absolutely is. And most of the people doing it are doing it for free, instead of bilking donors for hundreds of millions of dollars. But yeah, I think all of that like gives me a tremendous amount of hope that actually productive things will be done for Americans, right? Like that. And that all of the problems, all of the conflicts that we have are actually being addressed politically, right? It's not just waved off like it had been by the GOP for decades. And so that's more or less where I look at it. I think some of it though is like, going back to the Wolf Lone Bulwark tweet, like a big thing, like if you have that group, that large block in America, that is just sheep without shepherds, where most of their leaders, or at least on paper, are like hardcore anti-Trump and all of these things, even though they are, they're very pro-Trump. Eventually, they will have leaders that fit with their sentiments. And they need them badly, right? Because really, like, you look at Trump's, evangelical outreach thing where he brought in like Paula White and all of these, like, like most of those people are just awful, right? And a joke, right? And people are dismayed at that, like, oh, Trump's terrible. He doesn't get Christianity, he doesn't get these things. It's like, no, actually he gets American Christianity at a very high level. at least in terms of its political utility. Like these people actually do move. Like that's, if anything, like it should be a wake up call to us that like the most prominent people that are on his side that are in any position of leadership are like these total charlatans and skunks, right? It's like, no, we need actual like serious leaders that actually represent our people and have a lot of cachet with our people, to be, the conduit between, political power and our bloc. And so if there's, anything that I care about, anything that I'm praying for, anything I'm working toward, it's putting our people in a position to lead in that way. Because I think like the obviously like the value culturally and politically that the church plays. And this is just outside of thinking about the spiritual value, obviously, is massive. It's massive, and it's this huge base of power that is not leveraged, or if it's leveraged to like send billions of dollars to Israel, right? Politically, right?
Yeah.
That's like the only, or to like you throw a couple pro-life bones to them and they'll show up and vote for you. But if you have like a coherent political theology that is self-consciously understood by their leaders, where it's like, no, these are American Christians, they're particular people, and they have a particular interest that you need to protect and defend that goes beyond, sending billions of dollars to Israel or pretending to be pro-life. It goes well beyond that. Like their own particular cultural, economic, and social interests matter greatly, and we want to represent that. Like that doesn't exist at this moment, but it's close. Mm-hmm. It's very close. Like it's very bifurcated, where it's like they'll have nobody wears hats in church, but they'll have their church hat on, and then they'll take that off and put the MAGA hat on. Right? They're not. There's no connection there between their political and cultural, social, economic interests and their spiritual ones. Right? Where there's a clear divide in their minds between the two, and it's like, well, what if they're all one? What if they flow from the same source? Right? Then, and you have leaders that are conscious of that and pursuing those things. Then you have this, unstoppable force. Like I look at the tens of millions of American evangelicals as sort of like, I see you've got the Dune board game there. Like it's sort of like the Fremen.
Yeah.
Right. The analogy is there, and
they're sitting on a reservoir of water,
uh,
whatever that would mean.
Yeah, they are, and they're there. They're very cagey. They don't really trust you because they get burned by the GOP. It's like, what if they did trust you, right? You would have this like elite fighting force, this elite political and cultural force in America that would just overwhelm everything the left has. If it were a well-organized, very politically aware people that are self-conscious of who and what they are, and understand what their interests are individually and collectively, right? Then it's like it's over at that point, which you can see why it's in the interest of the regime to prevent that from ever happening. Yeah. Right. To prevent. This is why like the Christian nationalist thing, why it was used originally was just a slur in 2022 after the Dobbs decision and after J6, where it's like, oh, these people are combining Christianity with MAGA, and they're going to take over the country. They're terrible, evil people. And it's like, yeah, they want those things to never happen, because if it does, they're done. It's over.
Well, what would that look like? What would the opposite of trash world look like? Are we going back to explicit lyrics on Kanye albums, little stamps, or like to what degree will church ladies be the new Longhouse?
Yeah, yeah. Do we want that? No, I think the opposite of what it looks like is people that are fully integrated into the created order, right? So there are people that do have a consciousness of who they are and where they came from, what they owe to their ancestors, duties to their, and are self-conscious and willing to carry out the duties they have to their ancestors and to their posterity. That they are fully integrated into local community, right? Where you actually have local community once again, where people know their neighbors, right? Where they actually have neighborhoods once again, where they're able to enjoy life the way that their great grandparents enjoyed life. That you actually have civil society once again. That I think is what the opposite of it would look like. I think, and you would have social mores that are not insane, right? You wouldn't where sex would not be divorced from morality. It doesn't mean, right, that you'd have these like SS stormtroopers breaking into, busting the windows down if a guy's making, a teenage guy's making out with his girlfriend or something, like, oh, we caught you, you're about to fornicate. Like, it wouldn't be that, but it would be. I mean, most culture isn't overt, like we were talking about before. It's implicit, right? Where it's like, oh no, everyone collectively understands this thing is shameful. You shouldn't do it, and there's stigma attached to it, right? Every culture is that way. Even the trash world one that we live in today.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Is full of stigmatized things they're very bad and don't do it. Like saying the N-word, for instance. Right? There are always things like this, and so it would be recentering them in biblical and traditional morality. It would be actually having marriage again. Having it the way it existed for all of human history, where wives can't divorce their husbands on a whim. That would be good to have. I mean, things like that, where you could have family formation protected, and it would be it would be easy to happen, right? I mean, some of it too is just like the economic considerations, right? Like why are young people not getting married and having families? Where it's like, where are they going to live? Like, how are they going to buy a house in the current economic environment? Like that should be. Like if you were a king and you had a tremendous amount of power, right, that would be like the first priority in your kingdom right now. If you were king of this place called America, it's like, oh, young people are not getting married. What things do I need to change to make that happen? And like that would be an anti-trash world. What does it look like? I mean, it looks like Christendom, right? Historically. Where it's not a panacea, it's not a utopian world, but it is a world that is not going against the order that God has made and rebelling against it and trying to tear it down, but that just runs along with it. And like, yeah, you're still going to have social problems, you're still going to have crime, you're still going to have all of the things that beset humanity for all of time. But you won't have the monstrosities that surround us every single day.
What's the foundation of your spiritual life?
The foundation of my spiritual life?
Yeah, like practically.
Oh, like what things do I do, or
yeah, like what's the core?
Well, I mean, it starts with worship on the Lord's Day. And as the priority for myself and for our family. But
What's
then
your favorite worship song then?
my favorite one. I see we sing old hymns and
Oh, really?
psalms.
No drum
I
machine and smoke machine at your church?
No, we don't have any of those, and maybe someday. No, no, we don't have
Please
any of those
don't.
things. No, there's a particular setting of Psalm 110 that I really like,
Hmm.
that we sing, and but like with my family, I mean, my kids are all still pretty young.
Hmm.
So we have family worship in the evenings, read Bible,
Really?
and I have them sing. We sing together. But yeah, that's and so much of it is like, and when I was young and didn't have a family and things like that, it was easy to like, okay, get up in the morning. First thing I'm going to do is read some Bible and pray. That's a lot harder to do when you have little people that have needs at 6 in the morning. But
Hmm.
so most of it is relegated to evenings after dinner. We'll we'll read and sing and pray together. Um, and and but some of it too is, and this is, as our church gets up to scale and things like that, like having getting together to sing, to practice our for worship, learn new songs, things like that, and sort of having, and we're already doing these kinds of things where it's not programmatic, right? Where it's like, okay, here's the program that we have at our church and that we're gonna do. This is for the youth and for the young kids and things like that. It's like spontaneously, like all the guys are going to get together and we're going to go shoot today or whatever,
Hmm.
like things like that
Hmm.
where you're actually living in community. And we have things like Bible study as well, and catechism for the children, but all of that, I mean, revolves around what we do on Sundays.
Hmm. You're that's notably communal. Your faith, your practice is notably communal. That's
Yeah,
what
it's
I
not.
gather.
I mean, maybe that's why it's so different than much of America, because because the rest of America is very individualistic, where it's like,
Hmm.
all right, well, we'll sign the kids up for this program, or we'll take part in this program, and it's like, and it's that's very individualistic, where it's like, all right, we signed up for this thing, um, and this is a thing we like to consume, right? This is I mean, when you talk to people, like you ask them, and when I try to explain like the radical individualism of American Christianity today, it's like, okay, if you went back 800 years and talked to your ancestors and where they went to church, like, well, why do you go to that church? And they would look at you like you're nuts, or even when you had after the Reformation, even when you had different churches, 500 years ago, 400 years ago, and even then they'd look at you like you're nuts, like, well, where else would we go? Right? What do you mean? Like, there's options. And today it's like you ask people, and they'll usually tell you like, we really like the programs there, the youth group,
Hmm.
or
Yeah.
and when people are church shopping, that's what they're looking for. It's like, oh, what's what are the what's the youth group like? Is it a
Yeah.
good youth group? Do they have good programs there? And then maybe the next order is like, what's the worship music like? Do they have a good band, or does the band really stink? And then maybe third or fourth or fifth down is like, is the preaching any good? Like, what's the teaching like there? And the metric there will usually never be like, am I actually learning the Bible here? Am I learning like Christian doctrine? It's like, oh, is the pastor just rhetorically good? Right? Is it
Hmm.
entertaining?
Yeah.
Or is it boring? Like all of those, like that, that's the rationale that people have. And for me, it's like, where I would go to church, a church I would pick for my family is like, what's the church like? What are the people like? Right? What people am I going to be with now? You know, that I'm here and doing things with. Is the and like obviously like doctrinally would have to fit. I'm not going to go somewhere that like believes the opposite of what I do on everything. And but it's centered around those things, that it's the people that ultimately matter the most. It's like what people, what do we believe together collectively, right? Where what direction are we going? And and so some of that I don't know. I mean, I don't know if, I mean, it is sort of a niche thing in the contemporary American religious landscape, but it is also a thing I think is growing, is a desire for community, a desire for togetherness that is real. It's not just this bootstrapped thing where it's like, we're gonna have community now, guys. But is actual genuinely what people are pursuing. And I mean, part of it, like the overall project that we're in, where my friends are developing land and I'm planting a church here, and people are like moving, primarily, right? They want to get out of the city that they're at, but they could go anywhere though, right? Why do they want to come here? It's to have like actual community that they lack. Right? It's like, my kids don't have anyone to play with. We don't have anyone to go grab a beer with, right? I live in whatever city in the country, and I've got friends at church, but they live 45 minutes away from me. I don't have any. I'm alone in my cul-de-sac here, right?
Yeah.
That desire, I think it's in there, and I think it overcomes a lot of our individualism, and because it's so hyper individualistic and everything is so commercialized that it's you begin to feel that. You begin to feel like I'm completely alone and I don't want to be. And you desire something much better, something that you didn't even have to try to do. It just was 100 years ago.
Andrew, thank you very much for finally showing up.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, it was really good to get to know you more and understand your thought and your history. You say you have a couple more books in the pipe. What are they? When are they going to drop? Do you know?
Yeah, so I have I'm republishing the Boniface option very soon, a second edition with a new afterword that I'm very close to being done with. And then I have another book on the New Testament and the people of God. I mean, that's a title by N.T. Wright, so I'm not going to steal that title. But it's yet to be titled, and it largely is just a biblical examination of the New Testament with regard to Israel and the church, and that entire question of like who are God's chosen people today, right? What does the New Testament say about this? Because that's a subject of tremendous confusion within the majority of American evangelical Christians, and it's also something that I think is like people get very manipulated about in both directions. Where it's like, oh, if you don't believe that we should be sending billions of dollars to Israel every year, you're going to be cursed by God. There's people that say that, but then there's other people who I mean, you have like the very hard right people that are like, oh, Christianity's this Jewish thing, and and we hate Jews and all of that, and it's like, and I want to just give like the actual biblical answer, where it's like, no, like Jesus Christ is the true Israel, and those who are united to Him, right? They're the chosen seed, right? That's it, right? That's verbatim what the Apostle Paul says in the New Testament, and to just recover that, and part of it is recovering a Christian self-confidence in ourselves, where it's like, okay, well, if we are the chosen people of God, then that means like Genesis 12 is saying something totally different than what I thought. It's like, oh, those who bless God's people will be blessed, and those who curse them will be cursed. And so it should make American Christians much more self-confident in who and what they are, and pursue the good not only for themselves but for their neighbors.
Yeah, oh man, I almost said the Jewish question, but the Israeli conversation, or the Israel conversation, the Zionist, is Zionist a bad word or not? I think it's okay.
I don't know if it is. I don't really know.
It's just like the race question, and then the gender question became for a bit. It's just the things are so turned up that people are either demonizing or worshiping this as something other than this human construct, this state of Israel. Just it's got such a powerful imagination. I do think it has to do with it being featured in the Bible so often.
You hear that word a lot, so must
so
be important.
It's got a magic power, and I see a lot of people like expending way too much energy on the question. But maybe it's a super important question. Maybe that is like, if America can control that part of the world, maybe Christ will come back and the millennium will start or end or whatever is supposed to happen there.
Yeah,
right?
that has a hold on so many people that it's important to actually examine, okay, well, what does the Bible say about this? I think, and part of it too is something where it's like, I want to write something that like actually turns the temperature down on these things. Cause you do see like the rising, like, oh yeah, the Jews are in control of everything, and they're eating babies and like all that kind of stuff. Right. And it's like, well, what if there's a via media between, we should send our sons to go die for Israel on the one hand, so Jesus will come back, and the other one where like Jews are just the worst thing ever and we hate them. What if there's a different answer to either of those questions?
It's not even between them at all.
Via media is probably the wrong phrase, but a totally alternate answer to both of those things, where you don't have to do either of those, right? That yes, that's a group that exists, and they're not Christians, and we don't have to kowtow to them, but neither do we have to hate them either, right? Like I think it'll be an important thing. I mean, I'm sure I'll get a lot of hate from everyone for it. But I think for Christians to be able to answer that and understand what's going on in every direction, and have a confident understanding of what we are is actually very important in this moment.
Yeah, there's a lot of identity, like you were saying about ethnogenesis. America, if we are to move forward, move beyond the so-called post-World War II consensus, there needs to be another frame in which we operate, and the frame can't be just against the World War II consensus. Like that's the beginning of reassessing that is the beginning of freeing ourselves from it, but that's not where we're going to find.
It can't just be the opposite of that. It can't just be
the opposite.
Because that's where a lot of people end up. Is, well, if everything about this is false and bad, and all these bad things happened, then the losers of that war must have been totally right about everything, right? No, both things can be false, actually, and that there can be a new direction for America, a new direction for the West, that it can continue on existing, and for what basis, right? Well, I think it should be Christian. It always was Christian until the 20th century, really. And it can be again very easily, especially, I mean, I think about this, like even a place like Germany, I mean, this is most of my ancestry is from there. And I think about that place a lot, especially with contemporary politics. And you think like, cause most of the, like, if you think like American Christianity is like very cucked, in Germany it's so much worse. And it's like, what if there was an American or a German Christianity for Germany that said like Germany should be allowed to exist, and it should not be Muslim. We should send them all back. what would that look like? What would that do? Right? How much that would revivify Christianity in Germany
Yeah.
to an extent nobody, especially among the youth, that you haven't seen for centuries, maybe. That no, this was a Christian nation, and we are expelling the Muslims, and Germany is going to be for Germans. I mean, the same thing is true. I think I saw this about France and Roman Catholicism. Maybe this Easter, right? The masses in France. I think were the most well attended they have been this year in several in like decades.
Yeah, something's happening.
And it's like, yeah, if there is a Christianity that allows for nations to exist and not be subsumed into this global soup, it'll take off, and it will become a potent force in those places. And I think something similar is happening in America as well, where America is a particular people and place, and it should be like those people should be allowed to exist and exist as a particular people. And that is such a radical idea to us, but it's so normal to all of human history.
Yeah.
And a Christianity that is aware of this and operates where that's a good thing, actually, that will be massive. That'll be huge. And so whatever little role I can play in that, I'm going to pursue.
So where can people find you? What are they going to find when they get there?
Yeah. So on X, they can find my account at Boniface Option. And the podcast I do on YouTube, and I think we're in Rumble and a few other places with CJ Engel, is Contra Mundum, and CUNTRA. Yes, it is against the world.
Is that like the Rage Against the Machine, but in Latin kind of thing?
That's right. That's right. Yeah. That's right. That's the best way I've heard it described. But yeah. So what they'll find when they get there, I mean, I like to post about, contemporary political goings on, things like that, but also a mix of Christian theology, biblical theology. I like to post about the Bible a lot. Sometimes just whatever I'm preaching on or teaching on will find its way onto my account. But yeah, CJ and I on the podcast, we'll talk about the news and things like that. But I'm much more interested, and so is CJ, in talking about broader like theory, why things are the way that they are. Why, and just delving deep into politics and history and culture. I mean, a lot of the stuff that we've talked about today, that's what we engage in often.
Well, thanks again for joining me. I'll link to your work.
Thank you for having me.
It's been great. Hopefully I get to meet you in person someday, maybe when I'm in Tennessee.
Yes, Lord willing. Yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah, come on and visit us in Tennessee anytime you like.
Oh, yeah. No, I'll bring my family down there. How far away is that from Kentucky? I have some in-laws in Kentucky. It's probably like 2 or 3 states away. I have no idea what the Midwest is.
We're about 45 minutes from the Tennessee-Kentucky border.
Okay, well, there we go.
So, yeah, we're pretty close. Yeah.
All right, cool. Maybe I'll swing by. I'm going to wrap the recording up. Thanks, Andrew. And there we go.